Hey everyone, and welcome to DnD Horror Stories with DnD Doge. In today's video, we have a story about a player that abuses a safety system in a game of Vampire the Masquerade. A story about a player that just can't seem to have any luck when it comes to Dungeons and Dragons, and more. So without further ado, let's get into these RPG horror stories. Any tool can be misused. By Reddit user Kachar. Last year, an old friend approached me because she had a hankering for some vampire action and asked if I was down to be the storyteller, the DM. I had time and haven't played Vampire in 10 years, so I agreed. 5th edition books were bought, and I got to planning. We quickly activated 2 other old friends, a couple, who eagerly jumped on board. Also joining us was what I hoped would become a new friend, a woman my old friend met in a friendly local game store. We were to play mostly online, because the couple has 2 school-aged kids, making it much easier to schedule bi-weekly games from home. With the Discord server in place, things went well. There was a first, slightly reddish flag during our planning session, in which the newcomer and my old friend both wanted to play Toreadors. For those unfamiliar with Vampire, your clan, like Toreador, is a mixture of class and background. Essentially, there are different vampire bloodlines determining, to some extent, what kind of powers you can get. Toreador, for example, gives you powers to seduce and awe, to move fast, and to have supernatural perception. And Toreador are generally obsessed with beauty and art in some way. Now, having 2 player characters from the same clan would not have been a problem, but our newcomer objected. Trying to find 2 distinct concepts failed, as she just didn't want anyone else having the same clan as her character. Ultimately, my old friend decided to just go with a different character idea and play a Bruja instead. We forged on, and I distributed my customary pre-campaign safety stuff, a small sheet to give me topics that are off limits, and my explanation that you can, at any time and for any reason, just direct message me with an X to immediately stop a scene, and a Y to move on gently from a scene. Essentially, lines and veils. Our newcomer was great, creating a suitable background and fleshing out her goal. Basically, a bloodbound servant many vampires use. We also played a prelude, a one-on-one session detailing how her character became a vampire and how they found their footing in their new existence. She was honestly wonderful, engaged, enthusiastic, and very into the role-playing. But then, the first session as a group came. I started us off by narratively zooming in on a nightclub where the couple's characters, who had not yet met, were. The Ventru lawyer and the gangrel layabout were on the prowl for blood, while being approached by one of the enforcers for a keeper of the Elysium, basically a vampire that runs a spot for vampires to meet under safe conditions, with the offer of an opportunity. They both accepted, and we proceeded to play out their hunt, during which the Ventru lawyer set her sights on a drugged-up guy and set to lure him out. All in all, it was less than a half hour to hook our first 2 players into the campaign, while also dropping some clues towards the lines of conflict I wanted to toss my players into. Then, I got a Y in Discord from the newcomer. Drug use was not checked on her questionnaire, but no matter. I veiled the rest of the scene, and we progress to our newcomer's Toreador and my old friend's Bruja at the Elysium. Disguised as a monthly get-together for a charitable foundation, vampires mingled, and the keeper approached both separately, inviting them to the same meeting as the other 2. My old friend's Bruja entangled the keeper in a discussion about how the charity-funded blood banks operated, which was partially established in the background discussions. I was glad she did, because that blood supply network was something I intended to use in the intrigues of Vampire Society. All in all, maybe another half hour to reel in 2 characters and give the keeper some personality. Then I got a why again. I didn't know why, but for any reason means for any reason. So I wrapped the discussion up quickly. We played out the meeting the next night, setting the group on the task of rooting out whoever was diverting some of the blood under the nose of the keeper, who of course was diverting some blood for her own purposes as well. That's why she ran the charity after all. Basically, recently, the number of people who came to a blood drive but were marked as unsuitable for donation had skyrocketed, leading the keeper to suspect that blood was given but not logged and stored. All in all, I enjoyed the first session, even though I've never had 2 veil calls in the first session before. Our second session started with planning, of course. It was decided that, with the help of the keeper, the group would infiltrate the next blood drive. The Bruja, who, unplanned, but fortunately, was an EMT in life as a worker drawing blood, the gangrel as security, the lawyer for bookkeeping, and the Toreador as a donor being shown around. Good plan, on to the fun. I started with the Toreador's tour, and allowed her, due to her having good supernatural perception, a roll to sense that something was off about the person leading her around. She failed, but barely, so I left her with an odd feeling about the fellow. The others investigated, finding papers that the blood going missing always happened on shifts he was leading, him helping by taking a few blood bags to treatment and storage from our Bruja himself, before they were properly logged. All in all, we were maybe an hour into our second session, when I got the next why. I couldn't, for the life of me, figure out what was triggering our newcomer. The scene literally was the shift leader taking some blood bags out of a room, and the Bruja signaling the gangrel to follow him. So I did something that I really tried to avoid. I asked, in direct message, what the issue was, because I wanted to avoid it in the future, but had no idea what it was. Our newcomer piped up in voice chat, saying that she was bored, that it had been a half hour since her character had done anything, which was true, but I was floored. Misusing the safety tool to veil a scene because you felt bored isn't something I had ever encountered before. I told her that the safety tool was not a fast forward button, and the others backed me up. I was ready to be conciliatory and make an effort to keep solo scenes shorter in the future. But that didn't matter. She stonewalled, unwilling to see how her using the veils was wrong. So, after a heated discussion, she left the group. Now, my old friend informs me that she has told some other people in the friendly local game store that I run boring games. In hindsight, it probably was a bullet dodged. There is a happy ending though. We found another player quite quickly, and are still playing the campaign. As a conclusion, use safety tools. They are good and important tools, but every tool can be misused. Well, it sounds to me like that player had some major main character syndrome. As it sounded, yes, OP was DMing for the other players, but giving equal time to each of them as they brought their party together. Now, could a half hour waiting to do something in a tabletop RPG be a bit long? Well, yeah, I'm not gonna lie, but this player should have given OP a bit of a break in regards to that, as A, this is the beginning of a campaign, and B, OP hadn't DM'd in years, and probably needed to get some of the rust off. For this player to use something that was put in place in case a player felt weird about something in order to, as OP put it, use it as a fast forward button was really rude. Then, when they couldn't reconcile that, she goes and tells people that OP runs bad games? I agree with OP in the fact that it's probably for the best that she left, as she would have probably been more of a hassle down the road, and getting rid of problem players at the beginning of a campaign is much better than a ton of sessions into one. At least, it sounds like OP was able to fill the spot rather quickly, and they are all still playing together to this day. Now, before we move on to the next post, some of you might not know that I used to have a different channel where I would read Reddit no-sleep stories, and I recently decided to try and perform a resurrection spell on it, so I have started posting on it again. It's Too Spooky for You on YouTube, spelled with numbers, and I will post a link to my most recent video in the description and pinned comment. Also, tomorrow is my birthday, so I would love if you would check it out. And so would Nipsey.
Yes, check out the other channel. It's spooky.
You wouldn't want to disappoint Nipsey, would you? But with that said, let's move on to this next D&D horror story. Player quit after so much bad luck, and I can't even fully blame him. By Reddit user RequirementFull6659. I've been DMing for a party of 5 for the past few months, but one of my players just rage quit because of how horrendous his luck is, but I struggle to even blame him for it. His character was a bold and daring swashbuckler, an experienced mercenary who's too sympathetic to actually make money. If you come up to him with a problem, he charges, but if you create a sob story, he'll relent and do it for free, or heavily reduced. But regardless, he is a lovable and adventurous character, outspoken, brave, confident, and best of all, he can back up his trash talk. Or, well, he should be able to. The problem is, he can't roll for shit. D&D Beyond, various dice of various materials, other party members' dice, nothing works. The second his hands let go of a dice, they're bound to roll badly, and I feel like I've done everything in my power to help him because I know how it feels to have atrocious luck. I've tracked an old campaign and rolled on an average of a 6.8 over 48 sessions. It's why I became a DM, because at least I can fudge the occasional roll to keep a story beat intense when my atrocious luck wants to ruin everything. He's taken the lucky feat, but that only works 3 times, and I can't keep spamming long rests because we have 2 casters who would make our marshals damn near irrelevant otherwise. Even with the lucky feat, his bad luck kicks in. Oh, you rolled a nat 1? Lucky. Oh cool, it's a 3 now. Still fails. And unfortunately, he has to roll more than 3 times, a long rest. I tried to be pretty liberal with inspiration, and even suggested a side plot about confronting a cursed artifact that he unknowingly picked up on a job. But he felt like that it'd be scummy if he got a whole new power set just because he, quote, couldn't play the game properly, and didn't want to, quote, derail the main plot and be the main character. The party didn't even mind the idea either, but I think at the point of me offering, he had already given up. I made points to frequently stress the bad luck of the character too, because there's nothing I hate more than, quote, roll, okay, you miss. Because A, it's boring, and B, it makes your characters look like incompetent buffoons when they have a bad luck streak like this. When your experienced mercenary can't kill goblins, there's only so much missing you can take before your character just sounds like a liar who's never used a sword before. So I stress the phenomenal good luck or skill of opponents. Slick stones make you slip. Tree branches. The opponent literally tripped on a root, putting them in the prone position so his teammate can attack with advantage. The attack hits, but glances off of their armor. It got blocked by their shield or weapon. I even just flat out let it hit, but the attack wasn't deep enough, so he rolls damage and it gets halved. Just anything to say he did something. Over 7 sessions, his motivation has just been dying and dying, and it caused his character to become more and more reclusive too. He couldn't be cocky, he couldn't talk shit, he couldn't be bold or daring, because it would all blow up in his face. I thought maybe he was trying to build this up as a character arc, but with no inkling of an idea from him on session 7, during a ball where the party was infiltrating to gain information. I finally just outright said it, saying, "Why aren't you getting involved in the scene, player?" And he snapped and blew up at me. He said something like, "You wanna know why? This is why. This is me attempting any of the skill checks I could have done in this party." Then he grabbed every d20 on the table and rolled them all simultaneously. He rolled a 1, 2, 4, 6, and 7. "Oh, I'm sorry. Lucky feet. Let me just re-roll 3 of them. Gotta be fair." So he grabbed the dice and rolled an 11, a 9, and another 4. "Great. My character goes to break into a room to sleep somewhere, since he's effing useless now." And then he, the player, stormed out to my back garden. I decided to end the campaign after promptly setting up a cliffhanger. His closest friend, and the one who invited him to D&D, immediately went to go check on him, and when he came back a few minutes later, he just called me over. The player said they were done, and thanked me for my time, but explained that, quote, "If I can't effing do anything without the, quote, god of this world bending over backwards to make what I do important, then I shouldn't be here." I explained that I would be doing these things regardless, because I would. I found that the descriptive flavors of failure was entertaining and dynamic, and I got the players involved on the other end, taking glancing blows or rolling to see if they would trip or fall. I told him that the only thing I was, quote, bending over backwards for was the side story of the curse, and that there was legitimately a character arc to be had there. Yes, luck might not exist in this world, but magic and gods can mean it does in D&D, and I didn't mind having to create a good luck feat in-game to counteract it. But again, he just refused, said that he didn't want to be babied from the main point of the game. I pointed out my games weren't just dice rolling simulators, and that the story mattered too. He pointed out that if he needs to roll a dice to persuade someone, then it may as well be combat, because he can't win regardless. I didn't mention the make a persuasive argument in real life form of gameplay, because I know he wouldn't enjoy that. He left shortly afterwards, after thanking me for my time again, and now I just feel really bad for him. I know how it can feel to have luck absolutely decimate your character, and not to toot my own horn, but I think I handled it better than my DM did for me. But he was also stubborn. He didn't want to derail the plot, and he didn't want handouts, because it made him feel like some special character who's protected by plot armor. He was a good, fun player at the start. He roleplayed and got involved, but I think the will of the dice have legitimately ruined what could have been an amazing player. Man, that has to suck. I mean, I know we've all had our bad sessions before, where the dice just don't roll in your favor. And honestly, that is what makes the game kind of fun, as you never know what can happen. But to have every game be that way, I can see how that could become frustrating. I wonder why this player had such atrocious luck. And like OP said, they tried all sorts of dice, from physical to digital, but nothing panned out. Maybe they would have better luck with a different tabletop RPG system, like one that just uses d6s. That way, the odds of rolling poorly are reduced. Though hopefully, that player will try to play with OP and everyone again, and this time have better luck. But with that, it looks like we have time for one more story, so let's get into it. Killed just before the session-long BBEG fight in a cutscene. by Reddit user Illegal Avocado 2975. This is an older story that someone's comment in another post reminded me of. The quotes are not actual quotes, but approximate to what I can remember from the conversations. Back around the early 2000s, I was in a long-term campaign. We had just gotten to the BBEG fight, and the DM straight out killed my character in a cutscene. No saving throws, no chances to defend myself, just dead. I asked the DM why, and he said that it was supposed to inspire the rest of the party to fight harder. I said, "Now what?" And he replied that I was just going to have to wait. "Wait for what?" I asked. "Can I pull one of my spare characters?" He said that I couldn't, since it would be too contrived to drop in a character in the middle of a boss battle. "So what am I supposed to do now?" I asked. And he replied, "You're just gonna have to wait until the battle is over." So I say, "So just before we get into combat with the boss, you kill me, and I'm supposed to do what? Sit back and shut up and watch the battle?" The DM nods, so I start packing my stuff and get ready to leave. DM is not happy with my decision. We go back and forth for a bit, and eventually, and grudgingly, he tells me that there's a scroll of resurrection in the treasure for after the fight. But I said, "Why bother? This is the end of the campaign. You said it yourself that once this guy's dead, you're stepping down, and Jeff, one of the other players, was going to start his campaign, so bringing me back after it's all over does nothing." I left at that point. I didn't play again until several months later, when there was a looking for player notice at the game store. Well, that certainly would piss me off as a player. Just imagine going through a whole campaign until the end, just for the DM to have that happen to your character, and without any chances to survive on top of that. How did that DM expect OP to react? And where were the other players? Why didn't anybody else object to this? I know if I was in a game and saw that happening, I would have told the DM that that is BS, and if he didn't backtrack, I would leave too. I don't blame OP for not playing with that DM again, because that was such a dick move. Thankfully, OP was able to get back into it after finding a post looking for a player, and hopefully, their new DM is much better, though their last DM didn't really set a high bar. But that is all I have for you today. As always, I appreciate all of you, and hope that you'll consider checking out my other channel, which again, I'll leave a link in the description and pinned comment. I'll even link the video on the end card on the screen. But with that, I'll see you guys next time.